Today, I want to dive into my top 10 draft targets for the Falcons in the first round. This is my finalized list, the one I'd recommend to the Falcons front office based on who's available. Let's jump right in and start with players ranked 10 through 6. These are guys I hope won't be the pick at 15, but if the top 5 players are off the board, here's how I'd rank the best of the rest. At number 6, I'm going with Malachi Starks, which might surprise some since he's not an edge rusher. The reason I chose Starks is that I believe he has the potential to be the best professional player among this group. We often hear the advice to take the best player available and figure out the rest later. While the Falcons definitely need help with their pass rush, I feel most confident that Starks will have the best career out of these 5 players. In a few years, I want to look back and be glad I didn't just panic and choose an edge rusher like James Pierce simply because the Falcons need that position. I know this doesn't directly address the Falcons' long-standing pass rushing issues, but if I had to pick which of these players will have the most successful career, I'd go with Malachi Starks. Pairing him with Richie Grant and A.J. Terrell would create a formidable secondary. Now let's move on to players 5 through 1. Coming in at number 5, just ahead of Starks, is another safety, Nick Emenwar. Depending on who you ask, you might get different rankings for these two safeties, but to me they're 1A and 1B. I have Emenwar slightly ahead of Starks because I think he could be a better fit for the Falcons. He plays like a fast linebacker at the safety position. The Falcons recently brought in Devin Diablo from the Raiders, who played a similar role in college, so there's definitely interest in players like Emenwar. At 6 feet 3 inches and 220 pounds with a 4.38-second 40-yard dash, he's hard to ignore. His production over 3 years at South Carolina is impressive. He led the team in tackles as a true freshman and was an All-American in the same year. Plus, he had 2 pick sixes last season. It's rare to find a player with both great traits and solid production. For example, take Shamir Stewart from Texas A&M. He has incredible athleticism but only managed 1.5 sacks in 3 years. Emenwar, on the other hand, combines both physical tools and production. While I understand this doesn't solve the urgent need for a pass rusher, I'm comfortable leaning toward the best player available if the top edge rushers are off the board by the time the Falcons pick at 15. Before we move on to numbers 4 through 1, I want to remind you to join us for the NFL Draft. We'll be live on the channel, planning to start an hour before the draft kicks off, but we might go live even earlier depending on interest. Make sure to tune in for this exciting NFL Draft event. Now, at number 4, I have my first Georgia Bulldog in the top 5, Mike Williams, the defensive end from Georgia. People often refer to these players as edge rushers, but I'll specify what position I think they'll play in Atlanta. For the Falcons, I see Williams as a traditional defensive end, likely playing in a 3-point stance as a 5 technique in a 3-4 defensive front. Let's break down the pros and cons of Williams. On the plus side, he's an incredible athlete at 6 feet 5 inches and 260 pounds. You definitely feel his presence every time you face him. Like many Georgia defenders, he's an impressive physical specimen. However, the downside is his lack of production last season. He wasn't even the top pass rusher on his own team. In his defense, he played through a high ankle sprain early in the year, which likely limited his performance. Still, he managed to push through and make an impact, especially in crucial games like the SEC Championship, where he caused problems for the Texas offensive line. Now, let's talk about why I really don't want the Falcons to take Kelvin Banks, even though there's been some interest in him for the offensive line. Terry, I know you're watching, so please don't go that route. Instead, I believe Michael Williams could be the traits-based pick the Falcons need at defensive end. He has a high ceiling when it comes to pure production. While I won't say he lives in the backfield, he definitely has the potential to be a constant presence there with a little coaching. At just 20 years old, he's still developing. He can't even legally drink when he gets drafted. So give him some time, and I think he could blossom into an outstanding player for the team. The challenge with Georgia defenders is that there are so many talented players that it's tough for any one of them to showcase their skills until their final season. This means you often don't get a lot of tape on them over 2 or 3 years. Last year's draft class had several Bulldogs, so it's hard to see where Michael Williams fits in. Before we move on to the other top players, I want to take a moment to highlight Mike Green, the defensive end from Marshall, who comes in at number 3 on my list. This offseason has sparked a big debate about how to rank Mike Green, Michael Williams, and James Pierce. You'll hear a variety of opinions, but I'm going to stake my claim right now. The video we did back in January on Mike Green, an unknown draft prospect from Marshall, is worth your attention. He's a potential round 2 pick and is now number 3 on my wish list for the Falcons on draft night. Let's break down his profile. He stands at 6 feet 3 inches and weighs 251 pounds. While he's not as big as Michael Williams, he's still larger than James Pierce. Green has impressive linear speed and doesn't rely on a bull rush to win. Instead, he uses his flexibility and great bend. These are two terms that don't get enough attention when discussing edge rushers. If you watch Nick Bosa's highlights, you'll see how he excels with his dip and rip technique, getting low to outmaneuver tackles. Green has shown he can do this effectively, and we all know how well it's worked out for the 49ers with Bosa. Now, some teams might question Green's size. He weighed in at 251 pounds at the Combine, but during the 2024 season, he looked more like 241. However, his production speaks for itself. He led the country with 17 sacks and recorded 59 pressures. Here's the catch, though. He only started 1 year in college. He began at Virginia but was dismissed in September 2022 due to sexual assault allegations. After transferring to Marshall, he rotated in during 2023 and then had a breakout season in 2024. If the Falcons are comfortable with his character and do their homework on the allegations from both high school and college, this could be a fantastic pick for them. If the Falcons decide to go with Mike Green, it could either be a great pick or a headache in the next 2 to 3 years. We've seen players like Nicholas Petit-Frere, a third-round pick for the Titans, get cut right before the draft due to character concerns. That's a risk you don't want to take with a first-round pick. Now, if you're worried about the level of competition Green faced at Marshall, remember that many successful edge rushers didn't come from traditional SEC or Big Ten schools. Look at players like Hassan Reddick and Khalil Mack. They have a lot in common with Mike Green in terms of physical attributes. Jason Pierre-Paul is another excellent comparison for what Green's career could look like. The next 2 players on my list might be a bit of a stretch to reach at 15, while Green feels like a realistic option. So if the Falcons do pick Green, what's your reaction? Let me know in the comments. Give me a yes or a no. At number 2, I'm going with Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan. I debated between him and my number 1 pick, but I settled on Johnson for this spot, mainly due to the Falcons' positional needs. Don't get me wrong, I expect Johnson to be an excellent day 1 starter for whichever team drafts him. He stands at 6 feet 1 inch and weighs 194 pounds, which is above average for a quarterback, and he has good length. Johnson was a 5-star recruit and one of the biggest names in Michigan. He joined his childhood team, the Wolverines, and even asked for Charles Woodson's number. Over 3 years, he helped the defense win a national championship and put together one of the best resumes for a Michigan defensive back in the last decade. While he may not have elite top-end speed, think of Denzel Ward, who is incredibly fast. Johnson compensates for that with outstanding instincts and football IQ. Just look at his coverage stats from 2023. He's the kind of corner who knows how to position himself to make plays. He had 4 interceptions that year, showcasing his knack for being around the football. In 2024, Johnson missed a lot of the season due to a turf toe injury, and many Michigan defenders were also injured. Some of them knew they were likely to go early in the draft because of their performance in 2023, so it's fair to say they might not have pushed themselves as hard when the season started to go downhill. The reason I have Johnson at number 2 instead of 1 is the re-signing of Mike Hughes. While I don't think that should completely rule out Johnson, giving Hughes a 3-year contract suggests the Falcons are planning to rely on him for at least 2 years. With that in mind, it seems less likely they'd draft a cornerback in the first round. However, they did just give Kirk Cousins a big contract, which shows that quarterback is a priority over cornerback. I think the Falcons are more comfortable with A.J. Terrell and Hughes for the next 2 years than I'd like them to be, because I really want to see Will Johnson in a Falcons uniform. If you're looking for my best player available pick, Johnson fits that mold. The idea of picking the best player available is a popular strategy in the draft, and it often pays off in the long run. But coaches need results now. If they use the 15th overall pick on a player who sits on the bench all year, it could cost them their job. Now, at number 1, I'm going with Jalen Walker, the linebacker from Georgia. I won't label him strictly as an edge rusher. I believe he has the capability to transition to an outside linebacker role when needed. To me, Jalen Walker is an off-ball linebacker. He stands at 6 feet 1 inch and weighs 243 pounds, which is a bit on the smaller side for a traditional outside linebacker or defensive end. Although he only started 1 year for the Bulldogs, he was a key player on that defense. He played both inside and outside linebacker and took pride in being a versatile chess piece on the field. That's why I have him ranked number 1 for the Falcons. Now, he might not be the top choice for every team. If you already have a solid defense in place, you might want to fill in the last few gaps. But Atlanta's defense needs talent. Plain and simple. Right now, they're in the market for the best defensive players available. Aside from Jesse Bates and A.J. Terrell, I don't think they have many cornerstones on that side of the ball. When you're putting together a puzzle, you start with the corners. The Falcons have 2 solid corner pieces, so let's add more to the mix. Jalen Walker could be a player you build your defense around, whether that's as an outside linebacker in a 5-man front or as an inside linebacker with the potential to be a game changer. Let me put it this way. Jalen Walker led Georgia's defense last year in every pass rush metric. Want to guess where he ranked in pass rush snaps on that defense? He was 7th. He led the team in pressures and pass rush win percentage, despite being 7th in pass rush snaps. Don't you think there's more to discover here? A little digging could reveal a goldmine of talent that would elevate this defense. If the Falcons had a solid linebacker and edge system in place, this pick might not make as much sense. But right now, I just want to see more talent added to this defense, and I believe Jalen Walker is the most talented player among the 10 we've discussed. I do want to caution you about the comparisons to Micah Parsons. He's become a bit of a unicorn, transitioning from linebacker in college to defensive end in the NFL. Every fan base seems to ask, why can't he be the next Micah Parsons? While Parsons wasn't the traditional size for a defensive end coming out of Penn State, he was slightly bigger than Walker at 6 feet 3 inches and 246 pounds. So I'm not going to go as far as to say, this is this year's Micah Parsons. That would be unfair to Parsons. However, even if Walker is just 90% of what Micah Parsons is, I'd take that at pick 15. Plus, Walker is still young, so there's potential for him to grow physically over the next couple of years. Who's to say he can't bulk up to around 250 pounds, similar to where Parsons is now? So who is your number 1 draft target for the Falcons? I've gone with Jalen Walker, and I want to hear from you in the comments section. To wrap up, I know this has been a longer video, but this is my finalized top 10 list for the Falcons. Before we finish, let's give a special shout out to a commenter from a recent video. Big thanks to T. Orlando. 2 claps for you. 1, 2. See you all later.